It's the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim.
It is the Dev Friday Show with Mark and Tim. I changed some of my audio, so
well,
I don't know. It might be a
yeah,
little...
I know that audio is so loud. It's blowing out my ears right now. I had to like turn down my desktop audio.
Yeah, maybe. I think probably I should adjust some things here to make that better. You know what it'll be? It'll be better when we get the actual the podcast, because the podcast cut is always better. Isn't that right,
Always
Mark?
better. It's always better.
So.
It's cleaner. It's the way a podcast should be. None of the streaming on the fly stuff.
That
never works out.
No, never works out. And it's always a very well prepared set of topics that we do. Maybe the live stream may not seem prepared, but by the time it gets through the editing process, the rigorous editing process that I take it through, let me tell you, it's a really zippy podcast. It doesn't lag at all.
There's so much dead time you have to cut out.
That's right.
It takes so much. I know it takes so much effort on your part to do that.
Yeah, to get all that, those awkward pauses where we're like, I don't remember what was we gonna say. I don't know. Is it your turn? Anyway,
we have too much problem talking over each other.
That's the problem.
Like awkward pauses is not our issue.
Yeah,
it's
actually,
us, like just wanting to like say something before the other one finishes.
But what's odd is the live show is an hour. The podcast is an hour and 20 minutes because I take the two tracks and I just spread them out so people can hear both sides of the conversation. That's what we do with the podcast. So I was wondering, since I know you probably have all your show notes and all that, but before we hit that, or topics or whatever, you have a list someplace. I wrote a list once and didn't look at it again. That's
I keep my Emacs org agenda list on call for the shows.
Man,
I do.
All we talk about is Emacs.
Today I'm going to the show pretty smooth and easy. I've got very little sleep this week because my head has been around C++, math, and programming, and like I'm just like my mind's exploding. You ever get to the point where you're like you're working on things, you're learning something new, and your mind will just not shut off?
Yes.
What's happening is I'm so tired tonight. I will fall asleep at 12, which is good. I'm getting to bed at an earlier time, which traditionally I've been a night owl.
Usually,
I would stay up to 2 or 3 o'clock easily.
It's like 2 or 3 in the morning. You're tweeting at me, and I'm seeing it the next day.
But now, as I go into my golden years, I'm starting to realize, okay, I cannot do this anymore, and I have to get on a better sleep schedule, which I do now.
The twilight of Mark's life.
I know it's the second half of my life, and it's going downhill.
See, I don't like that algorithm, or that algorithm. Yeah, I don't like that allegory. To me, it feels like you're not over the hill. It feels like you kind of hit the bottom, and now everything else is uphill. Because it doesn't
just bounce back up, right? It's like you
don't bounce back up. It's like I've got a field outside that I walk in every once in a while. And let me tell you, walking down the hill is easy. And then you get down at the bottom, and you're like, now I go up. So I don't get this over the hill thing. It doesn't get easier, folks. It gets harder. And now you're like, oh, that was a struggle just to move up this thing. So I think we've got our allegory reversed there.
But like I was saying, where I've had this issue this week where I've been getting very little sleep, not because of not going to bed late, because I've actually been better at that, but waking up early. I've been waking up at like 5 o'clock. Like today, I actually woke up at 4 o'clock, which is weird. I went to bed at 12 o'clock last night because I had an esports match last night. It was super stressful. And then, I just was dealing a lot yesterday. And so I was like, I was tired at 12. I fell asleep, but then I just woke up at 4 and I couldn't go back to sleep.
I too am waking up early, mostly because of a baby crying. But that's a different problem. It's a different problem.
Man, if I had that issue on top of everything else I'm dealing with right now, I would not function at all.
Well, maybe this is not me functioning. Me not functioning, not me. Something. This is what?
Well,
yeah.
It's good.
We'll reorder the sentences in post.
It's good to know we're in similar spaces then.
Yeah. So this is what I was going to ask you. Well, first of all, I just was wondering, maybe, you know what? You know the parodies that they do of different songs?
Yeah.
And I think it's the new Disney song with the "We Don't Talk About Bruno" is the big one that everybody is like playing or mocking or whatever, making their parody of. I don't mean mocking in a bad way. I feel like we need a "We Don't Talk About Emacs," and that can just be our theme. We can not, like, if someone out there is talented and wants to do a "We Don't Talk About Emacs" song, I would I will play it as the bumper for
I
sure.
let you talk about and ponder about PHP and PHP Storm as much as you want, and I feel I get value out of that because, first of all, I learned something new because it's not an editor I use, and also I learn a little bit more about you each time. So I feel you should have the same, feeling about when I talk about Emacs and Vim and how better it makes my life, and I think that you should appreciate that.
Your buttery keyboard, yeah. Well, speaking of, I'm glad you brought it up. I believe last week was my renewal date for my JetBrains Ultimate package.
Oh,
so
how much did that cost you? How much did that put you back?
See, that's what's not much. Do you know what it costs to get all of the JetBrains IDEs?
I did look at it because I was curious about it after we had a conversation one Friday, and I can't remember what it was, but I was like, oh, it's too much for me even just to try out. So I was like, I don't know.
They give it to you for free. Like if you just want to play with it, you can get a lot of the EA. The advanced version, or whatever they call it, advanced release preview. I don't know. Early access.
Is it like what
access.
Visual Studio does with like their Visual Studio community, and they do like a professional version where you could pay the subscription? Is it kind of similar?
No, it's not. It's not quite. I think they may have one of those type of things. For one of their products, I think may have a community version. I think there's a community Python version, and then there's the professional. Mm-hmm. But no, for a lot of their products, they'll do an advanced or early access preview version, which you're a beta tester then. And a lot of times that's a free license, and it lasts, at least I've seen in the past, it lasts kind of long enough that it'll expire when you can get the next EAP. So if you want to be the perpetual guinea pig for JetBrains projects, I think you can almost get away with that. But this is what it cost me. It may cost this because I already had a license and I had some discount, or I don't know. But for a year, for all of their IDEs, is $149.
All right, that's not bad. It's like about $10 a month, so that's not bad.
It's not bad at all. And that gets me. I don't have to worry about it. Like I can convince myself that I will learn Go and I will use their Golang editor. Even though I won't, I'm not going to. I don't have the time for that. I'm not going to get to that. But I can convince myself that I really will.
You should.
I really will.
You should challenge yourself by learning another low-level language other than PHP.
I would love that. Well, PHP is not a low-level language. You should. Just
a language other than PHP. Yeah.
You should try something new, Tim, and write a real programming language, or in a real. Anyway.
Well, which has been interesting. What I've been learning about this week, I talked to you about. I've been learning with
C++, right?
The educative site and going through the C++ courses. Learning the language has actually been pretty easy. I've actually, because of my experience with like languages that are C-based, JavaScript, PHP. I don't know
that JavaScript is C-based, but we'll let you pretend that for a little bit.
Well,
Java maybe, JavaScript.
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, actually, yeah, you're right. Actually, because it actually is. It's not a Lisp. It's not from.
Java's C-ish, right?
No, Java is. No, and how was? But I was talking about from a. Wait, are we just talking about syntax or how it was derived or how it was?
I don't know. I don't know.
I think it was.
I've completely lost track of this conversation at this point.
Okay. Anyway, because you're getting me off track here.
The lack of sleep is affecting both of us,
exactly.
Obviously.
No, but my whole point of saying was like learning the syntax of the language, how it works. I'm like, that's been easy part. It's like learning because what the educator is great. It's a site that
C# is. You've done C# before, so
it's been a while ago, but yeah, that's
very similar.
Brings me back,
yeah.
But yeah, just learning the language, that actually is super fast and easy. But then actually applying it to solve computer problems, and if the problems are oriented around solving math problems or algorithm problems, that I'm like, whoa, like I'm really bad at. And I have to refresh on some of my algebra or algorithms and try to, figure this stuff out using C++. Because like I said, the language doing that is actually, it's been a good experience, been super easy. And I'm like, can breeze through that. But then actually, once you get through the lesson and then get to the end of the lesson where they have you doing the problems, and even the quizzes are easy too. But then once you start trying to do because
quizzes are just like, what does this do? What does this do?
Yeah, it just makes you think. Like
then it's write some code, and that's.
It was interesting. Like I've used recursive functions before. Like it's been a long time, but I remember using them before. But then it was faced with the problem, just doing something super simple. Just like you're given like a string of numbers, you had to do two things with it. You had to just reorder it, just like reverse it, and then also count how many digits that were in it, like it's characters. So if you have like 2020, you'd have 4 characters, right? So my mindset of like, oh yeah, give me an array, give me a loop, boom, done, right? I would totally know how to do that. That's where mine was going. Yeah, but the lesson, the way that the content was, I didn't get to arrays yet within the lesson. I was just covering functions and writing recursive functions. And they want you to do this in a short recursive function. And it was
you're
like,
going to like shift a character off and then shift it on a different stack.
Yeah, basically just check to see when, like basically use the number that's being sent to it basically as a way to, you have to do like a simple kind of math. You basically just divide it by 10. You also, subtract one from it to kind of, keep track of it. And then you just check to see when this number actually get brought down to 0. And then you can terminate return the number that terminates the recursive function. But it was super, super simple.
Oh, wow.
But actually getting my mind to that place, because I'm so ingrained as a lazy web developer of just using like loops and arrays, not really thinking
web in there.
Well, just to think about my life and the type of applications, the type of programming I've done outside of doing front end development, it's been like, I haven't really had to deal with a lot of math or a lot of math problems. And then also doing this week, one of the last lessons too, I did on Wednesday, I believe, I had to do some multiplication of matrices. And I was like, whoa, okay. I kind of remember doing that in school, but I was like, first I had to look that back up to remember how to do that. And then I had to figure, okay, how do I do that with doing some for loops? So I finally was able to kind of work through it and do like a series of 3 for loops to multiply some matrices. But it took me forever to figure that out. I'm like, gosh, if I could just know this basic math stuff, I could also, it would be a lot easier learning things. But I appreciate this because, like I said, I'm trying to do this to not only learn C++ and try to use it in a practical way, but also kind of prepare myself for future endeavors. And that may require me to know these things. So
wait, are you saying you may be leaving education?
No, I did not say that. No. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying the future is even though I'm hitting my twilight years, it's undefined.
It's Schrodinger's future. That's the
and like we talked about moving into my twilight years.
That's right.
But I find that opportunities
the
may
sunset
open up.
of your life. That's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. So, but I've actually had a lot of fun this week, learning new things, kind of forcing myself to get myself in space, but also it's been like kind of crazy. We're like, I can't turn your brain off that. And it's weird. It's not really stressful, but it's almost like physically stressful.
So you're liking educative.
I love it. Right? It's like, I wish I found it a lot earlier because it's my speed. And we talked about this where like a lot of these, online education sites are video based. And that's what I actually do at college too, is for these online courses and my remote or hybrid courses. I have to do a lot of videos. And I always wondered myself, like, why do I drag my feet about doing this professionally? Like, why don't I do like a lot of other YouTubers do and make the, online video tutorials and, start doing that? Because that's what I do in my day job. So why can't I do that? I realize now because I actually don't like to watch videos myself.
Right. Well, it depends. Like sometimes the video, because I find myself in a similar place, right? Like if I'm going to learn, I don't want you to teach me long form. Like I don't want to watch a video of you explaining the concept to me. Mm-hmm. If you have a video that illustrates the concept to me, that kind of like communicates it well, great. But I would much rather just read it and see it, and especially for code, show me the code example. I can read the code example. I can see how it works, and then the feel I got from educative, are you doing? It looks like you're doing the solutions to the problems at the end in an IDE, well, not an IDE, but in like a
small little mini code editor text box
that's right in the course itself.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So you're just doing the code right there. I love that type of learning experience. Now, at the same time, do I want to see someone like what do I want to say? I mean, video content is great for other things.
It just takes so long.
Other things.
Because to get, like you talk about, for them to explain the concept and for the demonstrator, it takes, even for me, if I'm going to teach a student somebody new, if I'm going to lecture to them, do that, and I want to feel like I'm doing it at a slow enough pace for them to understand. Because I think also the people that like to watch videos may want to not process information slower, but just want to do it at a different rate, right? Where I love just scanning. So if I can read something and scan it and then kind of drill into the part where I scan that real quickly. I don't understand that one part, so I need to spend more time on it. And it allows me to evaluate a lot more efficiently. With a video, it takes harder to scan that and process that.
You can't scan it. Yeah. Like you can go fast.
Well, you could, but you'll be jumping around. Yeah,
and you don't know what's there. But text, you can locate what's there. You can see it all.
But Educate does also some interesting. They use some slides when they need to. So actually, what they do is, instead of using a video, if they want to show like a sequence of saying, okay, this is what the number structure, this is what the structure looks like here. This is what it looks like from step 1 to step 4. It'll give you a series of slides. You can just click through, So you can kind of quickly just go through the slides. And that actually kind of gives the effect of like, if you want to see something, not really animated, but see the stages of what they're trying to, in a visual way, they have that kind of built into it. So it's nice. But I think it's a good balance of it's not bloated text content. They give you the information, the bare information you need to know to either learn the language or to solve the problem that they're asking you to solve. And I think it's a really good balance. It's not too long. It doesn't take me too long to get through the lessons. Most of the time, it's like solving these problems, which honestly,
is great.
It should be. That's what it should be.
Yeah, that's the learning.
Yeah.
So that makes me think of two things. One is I just want to say, like, from a learning, I say like, what am I trying to say? From a learning perspective, it's not that video content isn't helpful, because there are topics where it is. Yeah. But I think it's when it's these programming concepts, for me, not helpful. Like maybe it's because I'm coming from the perspective of I'm also a speaker that talks about maybe more high level things, API design, how to use Docker talk, and that can be helpful because I'm showing you by example, and I think that actually works better than say if you would read it, because you get to see it and you get to see in my terminal what it's doing, so it's very hands on. So I see the value there. So I don't want to come across as like dismissive of those things. I also happen to, when we're giving talks, I also happen to like live talks versus pre-recorded talks, because then you can actually engage with the audience.
Interact. And that's really the benefit of like if you are teaching a class,
yeah,
whether it be remote or
people can still message questions.
You have the back and forth.
Yeah, because you want to be able to say, oh, there's part of this class that didn't understand this concept. Yeah, I can talk about a different way to help communicate it, because guess what? You're the people that showed up. So even when it's a conference talk that may be turned into a video and then other people may consume it later as a video, the primary audience I want to make this good for is the people who actually showed up to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want the content that they want. But it also makes me think of so our daughters, and for those that don't know, we're a homeschool family. My oldest, about high school age, right? With homeschooling, what grade you're in, it's kind of a fun thing to figure out. They're in different grades. One's more ahead in math than the rest of, the grade that she should be in, by age. But they're both doing their English course is a video type course. But what's I think great about it is like I don't even know if it's every day, they may not even have a video. But when they have a video, it's the guy explaining a concept in like 10 minutes. That's it. It's 10 minutes and then the rest is do the work. Yeah. So it's not like this feeling of, a class is 45 minutes or whatever that block of time should be. So I have to have 45 minutes of spoken content. No, you don't. I communicate what is important and then have, like what you're seeing, then have an exercise where you have to apply that so you can show that you learned it, or more correctly, you can probably do it wrong a couple times and then do it right and then be like, oh, now I understand it. So I love that. I love that concept.
Yeah, so I've been building on top of that. So I got really motivated once I realized I was bad at math this week. So I found another site called Brilliant. I think it's brilliant.com or something like that. They're like, it's another kind of online kind of interactive educational site. They do like a lot of talks, but it focuses on, they have some computer science and some computer kind of tracks you can do. But I was more interested in doing like going back to learning some fundamentals of algebra and then going back to calculus too. Because I'm realizing, okay, I learned all this in high school and then college, and I never had a chance to really apply it in any real way. And I feel like going through some of these problems, I'm like, it'd be better if I actually could remember better and also had a more of an intuitive sense of how to solve these problems without having to kind of like hunt and peck and trial and error and trying to, figure it out in different ways. I'd be more efficient about it. So I've been trying Brilliant. That's actually a pretty good site. And then also using Duolingo for learning some Chinese too and trying that out. So
what are you not trying to learn?
No, my youngest daughter she's going to high school next in the fall. And then we got her going to the Bethlehem Arts Charter School. So she got into that and she was faced with taking 3 languages. And she has the option of taking Spanish, which, I took Spanish.
One of 3, right?
French. She had a bad experience with French in her elementary school. She doesn't want to go back to that. But she loves Japan culture like I do. And she thought, oh, well, they offer Chinese of the 3 languages. Why should? And I'm like,
close enough.
And I was like, all right, wait. I was like, I kind of, okay. I've had before all this fallout, before China seems like they're going down even farther down the wrong path than they ever gone down, and might not be a good place to visit in the future.
What?
Because I had aspiration to go to. That was kind of on my list. I started with Japan. I was going to go to.
Are we surprised by this happening?
My life. One of my life goals was to go to Japan, which I accomplished that.
Right.
And go to South Korea or North Korea. If I could pop my head over to North Korea, I'd be into that.
That may be all you get to pop over in North Korea, honestly.
I did fly into Beijing to connect. So I was there for a brief time, and it wasn't a good experience. I got harassed by some security guards, and it wasn't actually a fun thing for me and my students. But then also, Hong Kong. I've always wanted to go to Hong Kong. So they'll go to Hong Kong, and then eventually to Russia. So the two countries I had on my list of places I want to go are probably not the best places I'm going to be able to go in the future.
These are the highlights, right?
Yeah. But just thinking about the Chinese language. So I learned a little bit of Japanese before I traveled over there, just some common phrases, and just so I could do a little bit of reading. So I was like, okay, let me just check it out on the Duolingo app, which is the app I use to learn Japanese with, and just to get a feel for how tough the language. And it is super tough, especially compared to learning Japanese, like phonetically. And how, because one of the ways to learn a language is, especially if you have like a text-based app that you can hear it, but also see the language. They'll do like the Latin kind of approximation of it, so you can see like our Latin characters to sound it out. And phonetically, it's totally different. So it's a real struggle. So I'm mostly just getting a feel for it, because I want to show my daughter, like, if you really want to do this, you're gonna have to apply yourself and learn this, because it's gonna take some work. It's not gonna be an easy thing to learn. So especially compared to Spanish.
Next week, this will be a bilingual podcast, and Mark will be speaking entirely in Chinese.
Who knows? Well, or I could be learning to maybe our future overlords. I got to make sure I know the language of them, so we know.
Yeah, you'll be the first defector. There you go.
He's in line. They own everything, Tim. They own everything. They own us. So, like, if who knows what's going to happen in the future?
Who knows, Mark? Who knows?
Yeah.
What I wanted to know, though, is you said you were coming at this C++. It's not. Is it C++? It is C++.
That's for yep.
And you were talking about I should learn another language. I do have the C. I don't even remember what the IDE is. The JetBrains C. CLion. That's what it is.
That's when you said you could do Go with, right? Is that what you're thinking?
No, Go is Goland.
Oh, it has
they have their own. Yeah, they have their own Go.
I didn't know if they use the editor, because it goes similar to C++. That's why I didn't.
Well, but no, CLion's their C1, and then they have the C# stuff, and that's what they have. Kind of a good. I don't know. Their marketing copy talks about things like Unreal, and what's the other engine?
Unity.
Unity. Yeah, it talks about Unity and Unreal. So I'm guessing that's if you're a game developer, you're going towards that, which I forget what the IDE is called. I think it's
like Resharp. Is it like Resharp or something?
Resharp is a plugin for Visual Studio that brings in some refactoring tools. I think it's JetBrains Rider is their C# IDE, but no, CLion I have, and my desire there is to get that set up, although I've not done it, to be able to do some more embedded stuff. So instead of using the Arduino IDE whenever I want to do like a little one-off hardware project, I'd rather have the Arduino IDE is a real IDE. I don't mean to be disparaging of it, but I would rather have an IDE that I am familiar with and that I look at as like, oh, this is a tool that I use every day. I would rather have that set up in such a way that I could write some embedded code, because it's another thing. Yes, I aspire to do more of that. I haven't. I have ideas, but yeah. So that's why I have the entire pack, which again only costs $149, at least for me. And is totally worth it, because I can think that I will maybe do some of that stuff. But the question I had for you is, you said as you learned this C# stuff, C++ stuff, sorry, you were going to try a little bit more of a TDD approach. How? Yeah,
once I got to
going?
the point. No, well, I got hung up on the math problems this week, Tim.
It's the adding that's killing me.
No, because I haven't even got to the complicated. That's the point. Like, it's leading up to, because I'm dealing with pointers next, pointers, and then they have
pointers,
structs.
Okay.
So once I do that, and then once I feel like I need to cover pointers, that's another thing I learned in college, but I'm like, I never really did anything practically with it on the job. And I'm very curious about doing memory management, and also with algorithms, doing efficiently when it comes to when you're writing with pointers. So I want to take the time with that. And then, yes, my thought is, when I'm going to be learning these algorithms using C++, I want to do it in a TDD approach. So kind of set up, which I don't know what that looks like from a C++ kind of test suite or something that I could easily do that, or just kind of, I don't know what the problem. I haven't looked at that at all yet, so I'm not sure.
Because what I was going to pitch you on is, because I'm guessing that's not something you'll necessarily be able to do inside of Educative.
No, I'm going to do this in Emacs. Yeah.
I was going to pitch you on using CLion and trying a real IDE
All right, let me
makes
look this up.
code better. It makes it not make
Oh, it
code
makes
better.
it better, huh?
No,
All right.
I misspoke. That makes that, but gives you tools that make it easier
CLion
to write code.
CLion editor. I'm choosing spells with a C instead of a S-E-A,
Well, yeah,
right?
because it's C.
Yeah. Well, looks the webpage is pretty. Okay, all right.
Yeah, you already.
And
already
it looks like a JetBrains editor. So yeah.
So
Well, tell me.
it's like
Okay, tell me the
JetBrains
test
editor.
workflow with inside of a JetBrains product.
Well,
Tell
for
on that.
me, inside of Storm, and I'm guessing you could set it up
Probably the same
in a similar way.
Yeah.
It probably where the difference is going to come in. I'm guessing is how the test frameworks work. But for me, I have a class, and then I have a test class that tests that class usually, or tests a set of class, or whatever. It just says test. And since I have Storm configured in such a way that it knows that I run PHP unit, it knows where PHP unit is, it knows that the way to run it is to actually launch a Docker container, because that then has the context of my entire project, right? So the Docker container, when launched, has all of the dependencies from a platform perspective. And then it also knows what my bootstrap is, because that's configured in my PHP unit configuration file to say, oh, this is how we bootstrap the application so you have all the dependencies you need. Once I have all that set up, which is not difficult to do, in my IDE, next to a test case is a little green button, and I can just hit it. And PHP Storm will run it right in there, and like in a lower pane where the terminal usually
I saw
is.
the screenshot of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll pop up the run dialog. It'll tell me what went wrong, and if there's an assertion that fails or something like that, it usually gives me a diff, because PHP unit is nice enough to say, you told me this is what I got, and it'll let me launch that, and I can be like, oh, I expected, say, this array structure, and I got this array structure, which is missing a key. Makes it really easy. Or if it's the entire test file, I can just go to a little green button at the top and just run all of the tests in that test case. Or I can right-click on any test directory, and I can just say, run all the tests. So if I'm working on a bunch of code in, a module that's generally in a directory of sorts, I can just go to the top level of that and say, I don't want to run all the tests, because we have thousands, like a lot of tests.
Yeah.
But I will just go and say, oh, let's just run it for this set of code, because this is pretty much everything that I might have touched or messed with, in this conceptual module. And I'll run all those tests. So it's really nice to run it from there. And I don't tend to do this. Some people do. You can cycle the running, where you just have it running all the time for a test. And as you make changes to the IDE saves it automatically pretty much. And then you'll see, oh, I have this test. I had 4 tests. All of them were failing. Now I made some changes. One of them is passing. And now I make another change. Another's passing until they're all green. So, and from my perspective, and I don't want this to sound like I don't think other developers are making the right decision, but
Oh, don't be judgmental, Tim.
I'm not trying to be judgmental. What? Judgmental? I don't even know what judgmental is.
Judgmental.
And there's judgmental, and that guy.
It's a lack of sleep, right?
That's what it is. That's what it is. Like the convenience that I see, like where I can jump through the project. Like I can see a method call in one set of code, and I can hit control and then click on that, and I'll jump.
That is, and I do from an IDE perspective.
And from a refactor stamp, I right click on a method, I say refactor, change this, type in the new method, hit it, it changes it everywhere. Like you don't have to find it. Or when you're doing refactoring, you're like, oh, I wonder where I'm going to make this change in this code. What is calling this? Well, it's really just a right click, find usages. It pops up all the search. It pops us in the search panel, and I can just go through and be like, that part's not gonna impact that, not gonna impact that, not gonna impact that. It's a great tool. It's a great tool that lets you get what I want to say. Programming isn't about the typing of words.
Oh, but it feels so good, Tim.
It's not about the typing of words. It's about solving the problems and understanding the instructions and the architecture of what you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to try to accomplish it. And tools like this they take a lot of that busy work out.
I think it becomes enjoyable when you're typing it, but you're not thinking about what you're typing. So when you get to a certain level, like I said, I can do this with CSS, right? So I can just do this and not even have to look anything up. I can just do it off the top of my head. So it
Right.
becomes almost like you're speaking your native language. Once
Yeah.
you get to that point, then it's like, and you're just solving a problem or just trying to implement something, that work gets to be enjoyable. And the typing process actually starts to feel good.
Yes, but that's like what I'm saying. Like when you're not struggling to be like, okay, I got to find all the places where this code is used. So what do? I
Yeah.
do like a search. I do a grep of all my files. It's like, no, how about you just right click or do a keyboard shortcut? I don't care.
And
let a tool do that for you.
And in the editors like Vim and Emacs, they have like search, like, C tags, and there are ways to kind of implement that. But I do agree with you that, from my experience with Visual Studio, like having, the intuitive process, especially when you're trying to debug and running a process and you want to see if you could, best thing, if you go down the chain, like I remember that in Visual Studio, how it was really super helpful when I was doing ASP.NET work. Yeah. I was doing, and I could see like the stack. And I could go directly within the code files of where the issue is, or just where I have to do a check on. I could kind of do that within the interface. So
step
debugging
in code bases. Because sometimes it takes a little bit to get it configured, and when it's not configured right, then there's going to be someone in the room that's like, "Isn't dump and die a lot easier?" And it's like, okay, maybe in that context, yes, because right now we couldn't get it working immediately. But when it's configured and it's working, step debugging is so easy.
So I will say you haven't fully sold me on the CLion, even though I think it actually does look really super interesting. I will download it. I will try it out.
I'm pretty sure it's a free trial too.
Even more solved my problem by us talking about this, because just doing a quick search on CLion unit testing and see what it came up with. Hey, it has a tutorial. It's super nice. And then it integrates with Google Test, which I haven't used before, which Google Test is a C++ unit testing framework.
Google Test.
It's called Google Test. So, and it
works. Google, like the search engine?
They just call it Google Test, and it's their unit testing framework that's for C++. Okay, so cool. So I'm definitely going to use that. Like that solves the problem. I was wondering about what framework to use for, and I was like, oh, okay.
I'm actually kind of curious as to how unit tests work in a compiled language.
Well, you're not going to. You could probably you could set up as part of the build process, but also you're running the test separately outside of the.
Right. No, I'm just curious because because you compile it down, and then I guess in whatever way you compile it, you can call a public method by itself. So your test is compiling down with your system under test. And that just part is just
that's something and I haven't had too much experience with this. I don't know. I'm definitely going to use the Google Test framework and see what that looks like. But yeah, I could test it out in the context of CLion and try it out. So it does look, and actually I love this tutorial page that integrating the unit testing framework with CLion and how easy it looks like. So yeah,
I will say that like JetBrains as a company, to me, feels like one of, I don't want to say the few companies because that sounds so jaded, but sometimes you have developer tool companies where it does seem like the company is a little disconnected from the tool. And it's like the tool may be great, but the company's not, they don't really get even who their customer is. They don't, they don't necessarily get a developer's mindset, even though they may make, in the end, a tool that, hey, yeah, no, lots of usefulness. I see why we're using this. JetBrains is a company that, at least from my perspective and my exposure to them, is a company that understands their customer base. They are developers, and they are trying to make really good developer tools. Because sometimes you get in that, like, this is not me bashing Mac, but guess what you have to use to write? I mean, I guess, do you have to use Xcode?
Yeah, you have to.
Okay, but it's like,
they haven't opened that up.
So what's, you don't get a choice. So do they really?
You can do Swift. You could do Swift. You can file Swift on other platforms.
Okay,
but you can't build anything with their UI frameworks. You can't really do anything.
So it's sometimes when you're bound to a platform or some type of thing where I have to use your SDK, then you really see that disconnect where it's like we just gave you what the bare minimum and it's kind of broken, but figure it out because you really want to build for our platform because we realize we're the platform that you want to build for. You don't get a choice, so that doesn't always result in the best developer tooling. Yeah. JetBrains is a company that I think really understands developers. So if you're saying, how do I use this? Or I want to use this more efficiently, or like how am I going to do this thing with your product? They probably have something out there that is geared towards making you successful with their products. They seem like a very developer oriented company.
I do get worried, especially like I had a really good experience working with Visual Studio and back in the .NET days. But I always because of my bad experience with Adobe software, having like a large company that manages a large suite of software, and then seeing what they've done to their applications is horrible. And also think about the price too, how much they abuse people with the price. They give students a little bit of break, but you're paying less for your JetBrains products than a student is paying for the Creative Suite. Like a student's paying like double the way you're paying. So it's like,
But you see, the thing to keep in mind, Mark, is take a look at the average salary of someone who uses Adobe Suite and the average salary of a developer, and I'm sure that's also has the same difference. No.
I don't know. I've left that world. I don't have any Adobe software, so I'm trying to stay off of it. So
that's one of the things that, like I say, for the price point of JetBrains, like I know what developers make. I'm a developer, and I know that there's a lot of senior level developers that are using JetBrains, and I can get their entire package for $150 a year. That's a ridiculously low price.
Seeing how many tools they have,
and I think I'm guessing their philosophy behind that is just, let's just make it so it doesn't matter what you're going to do, you're going to want to use one of our products, and we're not going to make it hard for you to get to that.
It doesn't beat free like Emacs does, Tim.
All right. I need that song. We don't talk about Emacs anyway. That's the other thing I was going to ask you. So what do we got? We've got most of the half. I'm letting
you lead the show, Tim. This is your show.
Yeah, I don't even understand what's going on today.
Usually you're asking me
probing questions, but
my week was a very draining week, so I'm just letting you go.
You're basically asleep. So I had a conversation with a developer on our team today, and I was asking, were they going to get 1 thumb up or 2 thumbs up from me? Because they had made changes to a test. They had made changes to a thing, and they had made changes to test. I said, well, you get 1 thumb up for making changes to the test. I said, now, did you make changes to the test first? And it was like, nope, just 1 thumb up.
Yeah.
So that's the question. Are you going to get 2 thumbs up as you learn C++, or are you just going to get 1 thumb up?
No, I think so, because as I've been looking about future opportunities that I might want to take in the future or pursue in the future, how unit testing is part of that, but also as part of the interview process. And there was a question I was going to ask you.
But you see what I'm saying? Like the difference is, are you going to do the test first, which is to get you 2 thumbs up, or are you just going to test?
No, that's what I want to do. Like once I feel comfortable enough where I feel like I'd have enough tools to solve the problem with. Like right now, I feel like I'm still learning the tools that I'm going to need, both from a C++ and also from a math perspective. I'm brushing up on those things. Once I do that, I feel more comfortable. Then I can, I'm going to start with the test-driven approach first, because it feels for solving a problem, like we talked about last week, I think it is a better approach.
And I'm going to be really interested to see what that looks like in a compiled language. Just I've never, I live so much in the interpreted language. Like, what does it look like to build the test first? And then I even wonder what the time is, because part of what I think you're going to find CLion helping with
probably
is the ability to compile on the fly.
Because it's doing background compiling.
Right. Because if your process is, I've updated my source files, and now I got to go run the make command, make and then make build, and I forget. It's been so long since I compiled anything. But you know what I'm saying? You do like the first pass that brings in all your libraries, and the second pass which actually takes it to the compiler.
I compiled Emacs the other week, Tim, and that was a good experience. No, it was actually super. It was super smooth. Compiling, like I think I mentioned it to you, compiling Unreal Engine on Linux, which I did probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. That took the process wasn't too bad, but it was
you actually
so
had
long.
To compile it.
I had to, because they don't have like they're not on I can't do like a yarn install for that. So I had to actually download the source code, or I had to become like a member of their developer team on GitHub, and then download the source code and then compile it on Linux. But I just wanted to see how well it worked, and it worked great. Compiling though took like 45 minutes. You're compiling like a 4 gigabyte project, and just watching the stream of files and processes that it's doing. I'm like, wow, it took forever. So I just had to let it go.
It's been so long since I ever had to compile. Like when I started using Linux, this is going to be, how long ago? 20 years ago, something like that. I do remember having to I need to know how to compile PHP, because I need a different
version
library, or not just version, but like I need it built with this this
extensions. Yeah, 'cause
feature or
I remember doing
extension,
that.
right.
You had to turn on the extension to recompile the language, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I remember the time it took to do that. It's been so long since I've had to compile
Did the same thing.
anything
Yeah.
because like that user land experience has become so much better. I mean, even if you're still using command line tools to do the stuff, just it's become better.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that you had to compile a game engine on Linux, that'd take forever. Well, it depends on what were you compiling it on? Was this on your Surface?
No, it was on my main computer. Actually, it did take 45.
Okay.
It was more like I think they said it was like at minimum they clocked it like 15. I think for on my it took like 25, close to 30 minutes. So it wasn't crazy, but it was like. But yeah, if you're compiling on just a kind of a gaming PC, which is basically what I have, just a high-end gaming PC, then yeah, it still takes because also I'm still, even though it's a multi-threaded processor running 12 cores, which that's what I'm using. I'm sure it probably compiles better if you have the more processors you have, and so.
Yeah. But yeah, that's where I think you'll find the advantage.
Yeah, I'm looking to do that. So
to an IDE for a compiled language is it should help you with that build configuration, where it can do some of that stuff behind the scenes. It can manage that better. I believe CLion has a lot of that kind of built in to make it easy for you to compile and test and run and see things locally without having.
Well, I will promise you that I will try out CLion. I will from a testing perspective, but I'm going to compare it to
Emacs.
Doing it within Emacs in my Vim Evo mode and working in the code there, and then try to also integrate with the test suite and see how that experience is like, and compare it to.
I'll be interested to see that.
Because that could be something. Like I said, I always believed in, or I had a great experience with an IDE with doing interactive debugging and interactive step development. With that, and so yeah, if it provides that, I'll be more enticed for it. So
yeah, step debugging to me it's just so helpful because then you can see how things you can see what's happening with the code, and I love too. For those who use PHP, Xdebug 3 has some nice features to make it very easy to connect to a remote server. So you can configure it so it's running, say, on a server in your actual production environment. Maybe it's just running on a server that's kind of production environment, but you only have access to. So if something is going wrong, you're like, I don't even understand what's going wrong. You can connect to that, go out to like that one machine that's running with production data in the production cloud that nobody else can get to but you because it's not behind a firewall, hopefully. And that has Xdebug running on it. You can tunnel it back to your IDE, and you can step debug a process on a remote server. It's really slick and it's really easy. And we've done it a couple times to solve really issues where it's like I can't replicate it locally. It has to be something with production data, the state it's in, and we just don't know how to replicate it locally because we can't get that. We can't see the same error, so we need to run it basically in production, see the error, which also isn't helpful because it's an error. It doesn't tell me what happened to get there. But turn on step debugging and I can step through everything. It's really slick.
So, and one thing I discovered today that I tweeted you about, and my mind was blown.
I don't even understand. So okay, I just need to set.
I'm partially frustrated with Ubuntu because, and also most of the Linux operating systems that I've used, where I've been stuck on Yarn 1.2.
I don't even know what Yarn is. So there's that.
You don't even use Yarn?
So here's the thing. This reminded me of, we had an estimation session yesterday, and we're talking about all that we're going to do, in the next couple weeks. And we got
you don't really use Node or JavaScript packages. That's why.
So we get to we've gone through a bunch of these PHP server side oriented packages, or not package tasks, and we put estimates on them. And then we have one that's like a front end task, and the task kind of boils down to there's this browser API we're going to call, and we're going to get some information, and then we're going to set that in Vuex. And that's it, because once it's in Vuex, we have other tasks that'll then react to it being in Vuex, because that's all on the view side. But we just need this binding that says, like, when this code starts running, hit the browser, have a callback, set up. It's basically a browser API that gives you a callback when something changes, and when that changes, update in Vuex. And like the complexity, people are like, that 3, in terms of points, and it's like, I feel like this is 5 lines of code. And that's basically what it would be, something like 5 lines of code. But the problem is, it's a room full of server-side developers, and we're like, what's this magic stuff you're talking? I don't know. This seems really complex. I don't know. This would take me a couple weeks. And we have like two or three, more than that.
Yeah.
But like, there's a handful of devs that do client and server side, and then a couple devs that are pretty much just client side. And it's like, for them, it's like, no, what are you talking? This is just what? But we're a server side heavy team, and it's like, this is magic. What is this that's going on? I have no idea. The complexity level here is out the roof. So that just
the reason why I brought this up is because this happened to me this morning, where I was trying. Remember, we had a conversation about doing a mono repo, and I was in I wanted to start playing with that. Because I hate having multiple GitHub repos that are basically part of the same project, but they're just separate repositories and manage them separately. So like, I've been hearing about mono repos are all the rage now. So why don't I try to do that? And
all the young devs have it.
it's a hip thing to do, and so I was struggling. Like, well, how do I do that? I think you even suggested on the podcast, just use it. Won't Yarn do that? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, I never used Yarn in that way for that. So I was like, and I was curious. I was like, hey, what could Yarn do? So I did some searching around, and I also remember another podcast I was listening to.
Pretend I don't know what Yarn is.
Well, Yarn is the package manager for. Okay, well, you have NPM. You know what NPM is?
I know what NPM is.
The node package
NPM
manager.
Every once in a while removes code from the internet and everything breaks. That's what I know about NPM.
Well, I did also tweet about I want to get away from dependency hell. That's also one thing I'm a little bit afraid of with all these packages, where everything's dependent upon each other and something's going to break.
But yeah, and I know that Yarn plays with NPM a little bit.
Yes, what's sort of like, I think of it. Okay, I'm not a low level, Yarn developer. I haven't looked at the source code, but basically what I've read about, it's basically like a layer on top of. It's another package manager that basically is. I don't think it's a layer on top of Node, but basically it does basically the same thing Node does, but a little.
Or NPM does.
NPM does, but more efficiently. So it caches your packages on your computer.
Does it use NPM? Is it like in the
no? It has its own cache. It uses this. It uses it's. Well, you install it by NPM, so it basically is like it's a Node package manager. So it basically does the exact same thing as NPM, but it's a different package manager. But what it does is it's more efficient about caching, especially caching libraries that you share between projects. So
and I'm guessing like NPM, because this is what's also interesting to me. I don't leverage it. In PHP world, we have Composer, which is our package manager, which I think, generally speaking, is well respected in terms of package managers.
Always heard good things about it.
It does a pretty good job.
It uses a JSON file.
Yeah, so that means it's probably good. But in the package manager, you can define scripts and say, oh, Composer run and like run some script.
Yeah, basically does.
I don't do that. We rarely do stuff like that because we tend to have other things that let us run one-off scripts. But NPM and Yarn, that's part of it. Like a lot of it is
it's the equivalent of that. Yeah,
running scripts, and those scripts are they. Does NPM or Yarn add any context to those scripts, or is it just, hey, execute it? Make sure all the dependencies are loaded. Like, why are you running a script from NPM? Why are you having NPM or Yarn run a build script for you?
Well, usually the build processes are depending upon the libraries you use. So if I would be building a React
because
site,
it at least gives you all your dependencies. You're all dependencies.
It kind of helps.
Loaded.
It helps manage that, and also from a scripting standpoint, when you set up your package config file, you can specify, okay, when I want to do a build command, or if I want to do a dev command to run my dev server, you can basically just set up in the configuration, and then you can just cite yarn dev, and it'll just start that script for it. So it makes the scripting a little bit more efficient and a little more simplified with the configuration.
Kind of a shim to run your script in a particular context that's needed for whatever work needs to be done. Okay.
So, and then I was thinking about, so I've heard another podcast too, the Syntax podcast, which is more of a front-end podcast that I listen to, but they're pretty good. They had a mono repo episode, and they were talking about how they use Yarn Workspaces. And I totally forgot about that. I was like, oh, Workspaces, what is that? So I searched on it, and I was like,
what is that?
So it was like, that kind of solves the problem, which it's not a full-on mono repo. Like there's this turbo repo, there's Bazel, there's other build systems around that are focused on mono repos and supporting that. And I didn't really want anything huge, but I just want a good solution. And what I've been reading about, Workspaces is a kind of a great starting point for that. So if I just want to have a project where I'm going to have multiple repositories, also that those repositories share packages, Yarn has this built in. Now what I was talking about going from being on version 1.2 and then having to upgrade that because I wasn't realizing what version I was on, where I could create a workspace on it, but then it didn't share the packages. So when I did the workspace, that was all super easy, configured the files in the workspaces, did that all by default. And then I was like, why can't I like start this, run the commands properly, or why can't it list my workspace? It wasn't fully working. And then I read, oh, you need to upgrade to Yarn 2. I was like, what is this? What is Yarn 2? I didn't know that there was another big version of Yarn. So apparently, go from
Yarn 2 or Yarn 3?
Well, Yarn 3 is the latest.
Okay.
Apparently,
you
Yarn
just
2,
had to upgrade to Yarn 2? You weren't even on Yarn 2?
No, like I was just on I'm running the Ubuntu 20.4 version. That's on the Windows subsystem.
Okay.
Yeah, the long-term, the LTS version.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm running. So also I had the same issue when I probably run the same thing on Pop, I believe. I had this kind of a similar thing. I think, I don't know. I can't remember what version, but I don't think it was the Yarn 3.2 version. So I upgraded the version, and it was like, wow, it's a completely different interface in a sense of like how it, when I kind of synced up the packages, it had even better user interface, the command line. It did it even faster, and then it gave me all these workspace functionality command. I was like, oh, this is great. It's like a whole new world, just upgrading Yarn. It was only one simple command, and nobody told me about it.
I didn't tell you about it because I still don't know what Yarn is.
But you mentioned Yarn in that podcast. That's why I thought it was like...
Did I mention
Yarn?
You
did. You actually did.
It wasn't like NPM could do something like this? I said Yarn?
No, you said, isn't it like Yarn could do something like that? Yeah, we were talking about mono repos, and you suggested that. So
I don't even know.
That sparked that. So yeah, now I'm on Yarn Workspaces with my... because I'm using
and what is... So Workspaces lets you split...
So basically, I just do like a Yarn command to create like a Yarn command to create a workspace. Or it's set up in the configuration file. Set up, okay, this is my workspace. This is what the workspace name is. When I do the Yarn install, it'll create folders within my project, and then it'll just manage. So when I do like my Yarn update or upgrade or installs, it just manages the project or the packages between all of the projects. Also, if I want to do separate build processes.
So it's not installing dependencies per workspace or per project as much as it's just installing dependencies that are shared between them all.
Yes. Well, put it this way, each folder has a node modules folder, but it's doing when it's kind of sharing from a caching perspective. Like I said, I haven't looked to see,
sure you're not fetching the same things over and over again.
It's more efficient about it. But also, what's more importantly, what I really wanted was that each repo probably might have a different build process, which with Workspaces I can have that now.
Oh, that's okay.
So if I wanted to push, do a build and then push it up to, Firebase and then push something else up to, I don't know, App Engine or do something else, then I could do that now.
But you could do that with, couldn't you just have said, okay, I have a Git repo, here's my root, and I'm going to create a directory, and inside that is going to be my project. I'm going to put a whole Yarn configuration in there, and it's just going to be standalone.
Well, if I want to have multiple, I probably could. I don't know. It feels now that they're separate areas within the same project, it makes the scripting of the configuration of the build process just easy because it's more siloed off. So if, in my mind, it actually simplifies it, where if I had to deal with like one big configuration of, let's say if I had 3 sub projects, then have each one has a different build process, I'm going to have to keep it kind of all in one and manage that.
But that's what I said. Like you probably could
do that.
3 directories and then just pretend that they're each their own repo, even though they're not.
But it feels like one, like I said, sort of what a mono repo should be. It's basically like it's one big project with multiple sub projects. Still managed with a Git. I'm not doing anything with Git submodules, so it's basically just one big Git repo, which I know what I've been reading about. Git's not really used for large mono repos. There's other better systems for that, but for my small project, it's totally fine. But it's for just what I discovered that today. I was like, wow, this is like going to Yarn 3.2 has been a life-changing experience, just like Org Agenda has been.
Just like Org Agenda, yeah. Yeah, and your Orgazillo or I don't know. Org's okay.
Yeah.
If you need an array rotated, let me know. That's a tweet from Mark.
Yeah, that's true. Like I said, I was this week. I told you about something the other process I did. I did a Fibonacci search. I did.
Oh, really?
The sort element, kind of just reordering. Yeah, if I want to just sort it, do some like array sorting between like ascending, descending, do stuff like that. Like the array stuff is actually easy. I could do that stuff because I've worked with. That's one thing I feel most comfortable with is arrays. Of just doing like control statements or loops through arrays. I've been doing that all my life, and that's stuff I think about. But just if I had to try to find a way to find the most optimal solution with the least amount of code, because also the one thing I've done bad as a web developer is just kind of brute force stuff. so probably
let's add more code.
My code may not be it'll get the job done, but it's not as efficient as it should be. So that's what I'm trying to get better at. So what else have you been doing?
We're out of time. Wait, no, we're not.
5 minutes left.
Got 5 minutes left. We have nothing to talk. This is the stuff that we edit out in post.
Oh,
these
shoot.
awkward pauses.
My esports team lost their. That was something else. They lost their first match last night.
That's not good.
That's why I also did the tweet. I was a little bit on Tweet Store the past couple of days. I tweeted the fact like sometimes you win and you lose, and sometimes when you win you really lose. Wait, is that how he says?
No, you said sometimes you have to lose to win, and other
right,
times
true.
when you win you really lose. I
Can't remember what I tweeted.
I feel like your Twitter account was taken over by someone who wants to be Yoda.
Because they had where they were like 5-0, I believe, and I think they had a tough first game, the first match that they played in the season, but then ever since then the team's been pretty easy. Also, when we've been scrimming and practicing other colleges too, and they haven't really been much of a challenge. They actually had a team that actually put up a challenge, and the games were super close.
Nice. Well, that's got to be good for them, though, right?
Yeah, today that's what interesting.
Is that what you mean by the you're losing, you're really winning because it's helping?
Because I feel like it kind of set them up. Like it was easy. Right.
Yeah.
So it provided, but I was chatting with them today on Discord because they were kind of frustrated about what happened. And I was trying to, they're trying to not blame each other, just trying to like keep it on the key own level. But they were fine about it. But
your esports retrospective.
But my thought was like, hey, we have about 3 more matches before the playoffs. Like it's better to happen now. Take a loss now.
Yeah.
Learn from it. Try to figure out what you did, practice, and improve.
What are the playoffs? How many elimination?
I think it's about 2 weeks of and I think it's single elimination. I'm thinking
really?
how many teams are in the play. I think it's like out of the 5 groups, 4 teams. I think it's like it's top 16. So the top 16 teams, and based on our record, we should be there. I'm not worried about that at all. But I am worried about though making sure that something like what happened last night, because we should have won last night. It was super close. We actually we were in the head like more than halfway. There were probably about 70% of the games we were ahead, and then they came back. So it was totally winnable, and that's why I was frustrating about it. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. So that was a win-loss. Yeah, you just have to learn from it.
Speaking of games,
yeah,
you have a Switch?
I do.
Okay.
I haven't used it that much. I haven't done play games lately, but yeah.
There's I don't even know what it's called. Game Studio, Garage Games. I don't know. I think it is a Nintendo title in that they actually made it. It's not an indie. It's not another developer.
But Nintendo's pretty strict about what they release on their platforms. They have to make sure they get approved, right?
Right,
you can't sideload the.
No, you can't do that. But I mean, it's. I don't think it's even from another development shop. I think it is actually Nintendo's.
Okay, first party.
Right. But it's kind of like Scratch, but it's more like Connect. It's more like reactive visual programming. Right?
A game builder garage.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a little, for a programmer, it's a little verbose about its setup and stuff. But my second oldest, who has done, we talked about before, Make Arcade, which is Microsoft's little like Scratch-like thing that lets you drag and drop, make games. It's built for games, and you can put it onto like an embedded little handheld embedded device, and you can just like flash it with your game, and it'll run. It's really it's really cool to have that visual feel. Well, she's been building these games using the tutorials and stuff on the on that Garage Game Builder.
Garage Game. Right? Oh, sorry, Game Builder Garage.
Game Builder Garage. She's been building games there, and it's been great because her little brother then is playing the games. So that's been really cool to see.
It'd be nice. I don't know if you could do this with the Switch. Can you hook it up like with the HDMI and then be able to use his touchscreen and project on the TV at the same time? I haven't done that in a while.
I don't know.
It's one or the other.
I think it's once you have the HDMI screen and it's gone. But they're basically playing it handheld. Because she's building it and then he's playing it handheld.
Because it looks like a pretty cool interface. So you could drag these node boxes around and kind of make connections. It'd be kind of cool if you could do that on the Switch and see it project on the TV and kind of use it as a larger monitor.
Yeah, but she's liked it. She's solved a lot of them, built a lot of different games. I don't think she's gone through all the tutorial yet. But it's cool to see her build it. And then her little brother play.
Kind of reminds me of like remember the Incredible Machine?
Oh, I love the Incredible Machine. They still have that. Do you know that?
It kind of reminds me of that.
I think there's still an Incredible Machine out. But yeah, that was so fun. And there was the Incredible Machine, then like the Incredible Machine 2. I think it's on. I think it's still on Steam.
It probably is. I just haven't played it in so long, but I remember as a kid, many hours. It was fascinating.
So many.
Yeah.
So many. The conveyor belt, and you throw the cat.
Mm-hmm.
What was your favorite part? The balloons would go up, right? And you have a candle pop the balloons to then drop something that was attached to another thing.
I just remember like making the balls. You had to find the right path of the balls to kind of
to get them into like a thing.
I like the ones you could kind of break through. You could find the right balance of like the you had to kind of break through the certain areas or something.
Okay.
I can't remember.
So. Yeah, hit it with a bowling ball or something, and then it would fall through.
Yeah.
That was
pretty
one
fast.
of the best
But
games.
that like games like that and tools like that inspire creativity and maybe future programmers or engineers. That's why this game's cool. Like I think it'd be great for kids to play more games like this.
Yeah.